Hi, my name is Amanda McWhort. I'm a researcher at NC State University, and today I'm going to give a brief introduction to the new Strawberry Enterprise budgets that we have out new to 2015. We actually have 3 different budgets that outline the production cost and expected returns that you might be able to achieve for 3 different types of production systems. So we have a budget for the conventional production system, a budget for a compost-based system, and a budget for an organic production system. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what assumptions went into each one of these budgets and what kind of production practices are accounted for in each type of production system. And then I'll talk really briefly about how you can personalize each one of these budgets for your own farm, what variables you might want to change or consider changing in these budgets, and how do you go about doing that. And in that way you can personalize really the estimates of costs and potential outcomes in terms of returns for each one of these production systems. And then at the end I'll give a brief demonstration of how you can go in and compare these different production systems with these budgets. So to get started, I do want to just talk about what are the assumptions that went into creating these 3 different budgets outlining these different production systems. So the conventional budget basically just outlines the cost and the predicted returns that you might be able to achieve in a conventionally managed plasticulture strawberry production system here in the Southeast. So this system does include fumigation, and it accounts for all traditional pesticides that are recommended under a conventional production system. And we're setting yields to be about 1.2 pounds per plant, and we're saying that that is sort of our baseline, that that's the 100% that we're going to compare these 2 other budgets to. The second budget is the compost budget, and in the compost budget we have removed fumigation with the idea that perhaps growers are rotating or using other soil management practices. So this is seen as sort of an alternative to fumigation. In the compost budget, all pesticides are still included, so the pesticides that were accounted for in the conventional budget are also accounted for in the compost budget. However, there's also the addition of compost, summer cover crop, and plug inoculation, so we're accounting for the cost associated with implementing those soil management practices. Because we're not fumigating, we are estimating that there will be a reduction in yield as compared to a conventional production system, and in this case we're estimating that there will be about 85% of what you would possibly achieve in a conventional production system. For the third budget, the organic budget, of course, again, we are removing fumigation, and we're now relying only on organic pesticides. So everything that is going into this organic budget is approved under organic certification. We are also incorporating the compost, the summer cover crop, and the plug inoculation costs. And again, because we're not fumigating and because we're relying on organic controls for different diseases and insects, we are estimating that we will see a reduction in yield. And in this case, we're saying that it will be 78% of what you might obtain in a conventional production system. However, we do want to point out that these reductions in yield that we estimate in the compost and organic budget could be quite variable. You could see actual increases compared to these numbers or decreases depending on your site location, soil history, and specific management practices. So these are just very conservative estimates. So now I want to talk about how you can actually download these budgets. And the best way to do that is to actually go visit the Strawberry portal. So if you go to the internet and search strawberries.ces.ncsu.edu, you should take you to the Strawberry portal. And here you can search for the budgets, and you should be able to download them quite easily. There are just 3 Excel files, so it should be a quick download. Once you have downloaded the budgets, you'll have 3 Excel files, and you'll see that I have my 3 Excel files here. They're all set up very similarly, so I'll just introduce you to the conventional budget first so you can kind of see how everything is laid out. So this is our Strawberry Budget Program Conventional. And you'll see that down here at the bottom we have all of these different tabs, and you can actually click through each one of these, and these are different pages. And you'll notice that some of these are different colors. All of the red tabs, assumptions, machinery, and production sequence, if you click through those, you'll see that they actually have blue boxes in each one. And anywhere there is a blue box, that is actually a number that you can go in and change and personalize to your specific production sequence. The blue boxes, budget summary, and returns will actually change. The calculations within these pages will change as you input new numbers in those blue boxes. We also have a cover page, which is just an introduction to how to use the budgets. So let's first look at assumptions. Assumptions is one of the important tabs that I think it's important to go and look at first to see how you can customize these budgets to your own production system. One of the first assumptions that we're making is the number of plants per acre. If you have different amount of plants per acre than 15,000, you can actually click on this blue box and change that number. So if, for instance, you actually have 17,000 plants per acre, you can come in, type 17,000, and then when you hit enter, that number will change, and you'll see that the calculations changed accordingly as well throughout the rest of the page and throughout the rest of the Excel file. So I'll take it back to 15,000 so you can see how it changes again. Here, because we're in the conventional budget, as I mentioned before, we're estimating that yield will be 1.2 pounds per plant. If you actually are projecting a different yield on your farm, you can actually come in and change this number based on what your previous experience or expected yields will be. You can also come in and change the percentage of your harvest that you're marketing towards U-pick and the percentage you're marketing towards pre-pick. So it's just set at 40% U-pick and 60% pre-pick, but if you actually have a greater percentage of your harvest going to U-pick, you can come in and change this number. So if, for instance, more than 40%, so let's say 60%, goes to U-pick, come in, type 60, and hit enter. Now it's important to realize that these two numbers need to add up to 100, so we need to come down and change pre-pick to 40, and you'll see that those numbers changed. And if we actually come over here to the returns tab, you'll see that these numbers changed. So we have 60% going to U-pick and 40% going to pre-pick. If we come back and reset it to what it was prior, you'll see that those numbers will change again. So back to the returns tab, and you'll see that it switched based on what we were inputting in the assumptions tab. So if we're back in the assumptions tab, you'll also notice that you can change the prices associated with what you might be selling for U-pick and what you might be selling based on pre-pick. So if you're selling different than $10 for a 4-quart basket as marketed to U-pick, you can change that value. You can also do the same for pre-pick. And those values will also change under the returns tab as you do that. You can also come in and change expenses related to labor, to gasoline, and interest rates. So this budget can be updated in real time as these prices are changing, particularly with gasoline, as it's been pretty variable as of late. So now let's look at these other two red tabs. If you look under machinery, you can see that if you actually want to be very specific, you can come in and change purchase prices for different implements, the expected years of life, and annual hours of use, to be very specific with these sorts of input costs. And then finally, if you look at production sequence is basically just a week-by-week list of every cost that might be going on during the production cycle, from starting in June, and it goes through all the way to the end of the season in May. And you'll see that there are a lot of blue boxes in here. A lot of them are associated with labor hours, so if a certain practice takes longer than the number of hours that we are estimating, you can come in and change that. I do want to scroll down here to September. You'll remember that in the conventional budget we do have fumigation included, and you'll notice that fumigation is right here, and that we have our pre-plant fertilizers. If we compare this to, let's say, the compost budget, and go to the production sequence and look at September, you'll notice that fumigation has been removed and pre-plant fertilizers have been removed. And the reason that pre-plant fertilizers have been removed is because we're accounting for the nutrients that we added via compost and cover crops that were applied during the summer. You'll see that up here in June, there is the planting of the cover crop and an application of compost. And you can come in here and specialize this to your own system based on what type of cover crop you might be planting and the associated cost of that particular seed. The same is true for the organic budget. If we look at the production sequence, again, here in September, you'll see that fumigation has been removed, so has pre-plant fertilizers based on the incorporation of the cover crop and the compost here in June. It's important to remember with the organic budget, especially if you are organic certified, there are costs associated with maintaining organic certification. These costs are included here, and you're actually capable of coming in and changing these numbers. So these are just estimates, and you can change the numbers based on your own experience. And if you're farming organically but you're not maintaining a certification, you can actually come in and make this number a 0 to remove that cost. So let's go back and look at that original conventional budget. So as I mentioned before, all of these red tabs, the assumptions, machinery, and production sequence, are tabs where you can change numbers, and then as you change those numbers, the results will change here under the budget, budget summary, and returns. The budget tab basically just lays out different costs associated with equipment, materials, and labor. The budget summary gets more specific if you're interested in where different costs are coming from in terms of percent of the total cost. You can look at that. And then the returns tab. If we look at the returns tab, you'll see that all of these numbers are based on what we put in under the assumptions tab. So we're estimating that we're in our production system here for this example, that we're having 18,000 pounds of yield per acre. We're marketing 40% of that towards U-pick, 60% of that towards pre-pick, and that these are our prices that we're selling for each of those types of marketing. That's giving us a gross revenue of around $33,000. Production costs are set at around $18,000, leaving us with a net revenue of around $14,900. If we go in and change any of these, you'll see how this number changes. So if we go into the Assumptions tab and say that we're actually selling at $11 for U-pick and $13 for pre-pick, and go back to the returns, you'll see that our net revenue has increased slightly along with our prices, our market prices for U-pick and pre-pick. Alright, so let's go and look at the organic budget and see how it compares to this conventional budget. So if we look at the organic budget, again, the plants per acre is 15,000. We are projecting that there will be a slight decrease in yield to around 0.94 pounds per plant. However, this number, you can come in and change it if you're experiencing a different yield on your farm under an organic production system. And you'll notice that the prices that are assumed under the organic production system start out much higher. So we're assuming $17 for U-pick and $19 for pre-pick. This is important consideration because very generally organic growers are able to market their products at a higher price point than conventionally produced products. And so if we actually look at the returns for this budget, you'll see that our yield has been reduced to around 14,100 pounds per acre. However, the market prices for U-pick and pre-pick are higher, so our gross revenue is around $42,000. Production costs are also higher, around $23,000, and net revenue is slightly higher than the conventional at $19,394. However, if we go in and change these market prices and decrease them by $2, so we'll decrease U-pick to 15 and pre-pick to 17, we'll see that our returns change quite a bit. So gross revenue has been reduced to $38,000 and net revenue has been reduced to $14,000, which if you look back at the conventional budget is very similar. So this is really important in comparing these two different budgets, is to consider at what price you are able to sell your berries under these different production systems. If we finally go and look at the compost budget, again with the compost budget, we're assuming 15,000 plants per acre, a slight reduction in yield to 1.02 as compared to the conventional budget because we're not fumigating. However, we still have the same prices as the conventional budget set as our baseline, and that's because we're probably not going to be able to market your berries at a different price point like you would be able to do with organic. So if we go and look at the returns tab, you see that marketable yield is around 15,300 pounds per acre under these assumptions. The market prices are the same as the conventional. Gross revenue is $28,000. Production costs are slightly lower than the conventional budget because we've removed fumigation and a few other production costs. But you see that net revenue is really much lower than the conventional budget at around $11,000. However, if we come in here and change some of these prices and the way that we're marketing, you'll see that our returns will change quite a bit. So if we come in and increase U-Pick by $1.50, so from $10 to $11.50, and pre-pick from $12 to $13.50, and then look at our returns, you'll see that our gross revenue has been increased to $32,000. Our net revenue has been increased to $14,900, which is very comparable to that conventional system. If you want to use these budgets to compare the profitability of these three types of production system, it's really important that you come in and personalize these numbers to your own farm in terms of the number of plants that you have per acre, how you're marketing, whether it be to U-Pick or pre-pick, and setting those market prices based on what you're able to sell your berries at. And that will help give you a more accurate reading of potential profitability under these three types of production systems. So we hope this video will help you take advantage of these three new tools that we have out and make it easier to compare the economics of different production practices for plasticulture strawberry production here in the Southeast. Thanks so much for watching.